Yes, we are going to address this topic finally. The long-awaited showdown between two very bad shows. Making a sequel is hard. Making a sequel with someone passing the torch to the next generation is harder. And passing the torch to your offspring is even harder. I've seen this countless times in anime. It seems to be the most troublesome to handle. An example would be of wasted potentials Digimon 02, whichever you prefer to say, and it's either wasted or suffered in execution. If I were to pick an anime that successfully executed being a sequel with a new generation taking over, it's none other than Kinnikuman Nisei. And the reason um, the show that's called Ultimate Muscle in the West is successful is because it doesn't rely on you watching the previous series, comes up with new things and not recycling ideas, explores new themes despite taking place in the same world, and doesn't devalue the accomplishment of the previous generation. If we go by TV shows and movies, a good example would be Sorrow. But yeah, again, Kinnikuman does the best for anime and manga. And what I'm getting at is both Dragon Ball Super and Boruto now to next generation are awful shows and fail in every regard to live up to their predecessor. Why do I mention this? Because this discussion, blog, or whatever doesn't exist with the intention to recommend you to go watch any of these shows. So don't think because I say Boruto is better that Boruto you should watch Boruto now. I'm just trying to argue that Boruto is better than Dragon Ball Super, not that it's a good show per se. You got it? So here are a few rules. We are looking at both anime and manga. That means filler is going to be involved when arguing here. We are going to give Super a small advantage since Boruto is a filler nightmare. I will not reference the manga exclusive parts of Dragon Ball Super extensively since I didn't read it all the way through, but I know plenty to know what the problems are, that these problems aren't addressed, and that will be mentioned. So, let's start with the most simple thing here, tension. Tension gives us uneasiness. It creates suspense. To create tension, something needs to happen that we care about, the characters in the series to overcome. The main ingredient of tension are consequences and stakes. Stakes can be something like trying to stop someone from doing drugs, getting your dream job, up to universe being about to be destroyed and you want to stop it. Consequences is basically self-explanatory, a chain reaction of your action. You robbed the bank to pay your sister's hospital bill. The consequence is, for robbing the bank, you are now in prison or get executed, depending on where you live. It can be handled differently, and the setting obviously. At the current point, Dragon Ball Super has no tension at all. Why? The universe keeps getting at stake. How can there be no tension? That's because Dragon Ball Super takes place before the end of Z, in a 10 years time of peace. In other words, putting the universe at stake and killing the main character is meaningless because we are guaranteed they will be back. It worked in Dragon Ball Z because they didn't know how the story ends. The MC may win, but everyone was revived once, so the Namekian Dragon Balls couldn't bring back people multiple times. Well, that changed, but didn't know back then. We know that Universe 7 won't be erased. We know the price for winning are the Super Dragon Balls. So even if Universe 7 lost, everyone would have been brought back to life. That's just putting 1 plus 1 together. So Dragon Ball Super didn't set its priorities straight when making the Tournament of Power, Golden Frieza arc, or the Builds arc, Battle of Gods. And don't get me started with the Universe 6 arc, where losing means that you are teleported to another universe. Oh man, how devastating. What about the evil Goku arc? Xenobot, that's it. There was no point to fighting Zamasu. Everyone with a brain would have seen that coming, that Zeno would be summoned. And it's possible to have a story with tension in filler. I suggest you see my criticism on the Universe 6 arc where I compare it to the Otherworld tournament. But how about Boruto then? Boruto does one thing right away. It takes place after Naruto, so you don't know what will happen in this story. But because of the flash forward, you know that Boruto will face Karaki. So both of these characters will be alive, and the world is still complete. And since we don't know how exactly they went to that place, the show can focus on making us care of the characters and plant the seeds. However, the anime is most annoying thing that most of what happens in the story doesn't really add to what is going to happen at the end with Karaki. So I will go right ahead to the next point. And we have seen that before. Boruto recycles many famous arcs from Naruto without the same impact. There are all filler arcs that do it, since the canon story has its own ideas by expanding the lore. Dragon Ball Super does it worse. We get 2 boring tournament arcs, we get 2 movie rehashes, which are rehashes themselves from previous Dragon Ball arcs and movies. Builds as Majin Buu, Golden Frieza vs. Blue Goku is Frieza vs. Buu or Namek, and we get Broly. Even Evil Goku isn't original, we already had one with Taurus. The difference is that the one can transform and can time travel, so I guess that's supposed to be justification. Speaking of time travel, nostalgia pandering. Making a sequel means that you can keep making homages to older fans. Remember Kamehameha? Remember the Kaioken? Remember Lava, Rasen Shuriken? Remember the Ramen Man? Ramen guy, remember him? Dragon Ball Super goes overboard with it. It has no identity on its own. It steals life from old, better Dragon Ball. And the fans don't even see the original first arcs. Believes the story is deep and emotional. Dragon Ball Super adds homages in situations that makes no sense. The fusion dance. Fusion dance when you can just use the Potara and get the job done. Putting characters into the tournaments that have no position in it. Or repeating past mistakes despite getting over set issues, aka Vegeta still chasing Kakarot. Boruto doesn't do it that much with fan service, but the problems with the new generation devaluating the previous era still exist. I guess it's kinda okay since the theme of Naruto is the previous generation surpasses the next. The new characters just feel like a cardboard cutout of, for the most part. First being Shikadai, and the worst cast being dumped down so the new cast can look more impressive. I don't remember the amount of times Konohamaru kept being put over so Boruto can finish the job, or Sasuke being out of chakra. It's not always the case, because like Naruto, Boruto does know how to handle situation with strategy which wouldn't work in a show like Dragon Ball in the most part. Like nothing what Mr. Satan would do could kill Boo. In Naruto, there are possibilities that someone like Kawaki could kill Ishiki without karma. I think this is a good time to mention it, power scaling. I dislike power scaling, but it exists for the likelihood of a character to beat another. Sometimes our authors make some characters a little too strong. Then we get into power creep, and shows like Dragon Ball, power creep is addressed with power creep. If you are following me for a while, you know that if you have high enough power, if you follow Dragon Ball long enough, you know that high enough power level, no amount of planning is enough to defeat that person. And despite being a fighting prodigy and being able to look moves by glazing at it once, Goku keeps getting new power-ups, so he can fight his opponents evenly and eventually surpass them. And let's count the amount of power-ups he got, which don't feel fair compared to others. Holy Water awakened his hidden potential. Kaioken multiplies his hidden full strength. Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, Fusion, Super Saiyan 4, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan aka Super Saiyan Blue, Kaioken on top of Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan, Ultra Instinct, the other version. Random Senkai, the spirit bomb being able to beat anyone depending on how much people are allowed, how much time he's allowed to charge. Now before Goku drank the holy water, Roshi retired. There is no way he could keep up with Goku and the new generation anymore. After 300 plus years, there are finally people stronger than him, and they managed to beat King Piccolo. That is when Goku was still a kid, and now he's an adult with multiple forms that significantly increase his power. He surpassed the God of Earth, the strongest character at this point. He surpassed all the Saiyans, surpassing King Kai. He surpassed Frieza, he surpassed all the remaining gods in Dragon Ball Z. This is a cutoff point where you need a good reason why someone could challenge him or catch him off guard. Super made Goku a complete idiot who gets almost killed by several weaklings, gets schooled by amateur Super Saiyans, female Broly and Caulifla. He still doesn't learn from his mistakes. In an ongoing show, in an ongoing series, you can't keep regressing your character. You can, but you shouldn't if you care about your product, which I don't think Toriyama does, or Toei, whoever writes that garbage. On the contrary, in Boruto, it feels more reasonable that Boruto could beat Naruto, which he didn't, but it's possible. The problem with Boruto is that the old cast feels weaker than they should be. Sasuke is a Java like Vegeta now, despite having the most powerful eye in the show. And Naruto is the most powerful ninja on Earth, but we didn't see him do much without his powered up forms. And we since we didn't see Naruto fight often in his regular form and dominate, it doesn't tell us that the enemies are threats when he shows his true power. Same goes for Sasuke, but Naruto at least has victories under his belt, unlike Sasuke and Boruto. Next, we go for use of characters. I won't count slice of life stuff in this section, since I feel there needs to be a separate one. Boruto has shown several times characters that aren't the main characters figuring out shit and being key to victory. Well, in certain scenes that is debatable, but there aren't a lot of them. Boruto, Mitsuki, Kawaki, Naruto, Shikadai, and Sarada are characters that come immediately to mind and that add something to solve the problem in battle, or are useful in combat without being in a situation where any other character could appear out of nowhere and finish the job. Dragon Ball Super doesn't do that. For one, there's no tension anyways, but Goku can teleport anytime he wants and save an ally. In Dragon Ball Super, there's no situation where he couldn't just because and fix the problem. He just doesn't or makes stuff worse. In Revival of F, for instance, there was no point in fighting the Frieza soldiers. Frieza chose not to get involved and was always there watching. Gohan and Piccolo were fully capable of one-shotting everyone but chose not to, especially not a character for Piccolo, so we can have Krillin, who could also have one-shotted everyone, probably gets flustered and scared. Also, Roshi is there for some reason. The enemies just didn't put the effort in to get the stuff done immediately, and conserving energy didn't matter since they were that much apart in power. Jiren just powering up and blasting every weakling could have hardly weakened him to the point he couldn't beat Universe 7 without plot-induced power-ups. In fact, Jiren spared 2 people he fought, and the manga at least that is addressed. And thus it's just a problem in the anime version of the Tournament of Power. But that's the least of Tournament of Powers and worst parts. So besides Goku, nobody really mattered in combat to beat the enemy, unless you want to count Zeno. And the gap in power between various characters is too large to make a difference. Boruto does a better job justifying victories of other characters. The underlings in Dragon Ball feel like punching bags, so the characters have to do stuff. Meanwhile in Boruto they feel like actual characters that can pose a threat. Dragon Ball has nothing akin to the Espada, Kara, Akatsuki for other members of the cast to beat. The Ginyu Force were defeated by Goku with the exception of Guldo, who got sneak attacked by Vegeta, but that was in Z, not Super. I said at least in combat roles. Support roles we have beast, Dragon Balls and good tasting food. Slice of life. This exists to make some of us care about characters and their lives. Me personally, Boruto managed to do slice of life better, but I will give Dragon Ball Super one reason only. The victory for one reason only, and that is the amount of filler. Boruto has way too much of them. And overall that isn't even the premise of the show. Like, I like a good slice of life series, but I wouldn't mind seeing a spin-off sitcom version of Naruto and stuff, but this is not what the show tried us to sell. If we go by manga, Boruto wins since most of Dragon Ball Super slice of life moments are boring and we don't learn anything interesting about the characters and their view. It's just filling manga panels, but in Boruto you do learn about how characters think and how they act while doing their hobbies. In Super they just eat food. They really like food. Violence. We go to violence. We will end this with the most simple thing. Censorship really plays a big role on how the shows are handled. They are sequels to already violent shonen shows, so you would expect some good action and some blood. Dragon Ball Super has exactly one scene I recall blood being used. Every other time it's just spat by the opponent. I lost the count how many times that happened in the Tournament of Power arc where they recycled the same gut punch. The scene is supposed to give you intensity of the punch, but it's done so often it loses its magic, like every stolen scene from Z. Immensely skilled, supposedly powerful attacks feel weak when something like a energy blade can one-shot everyone with that gets cut. A problem of the evil Goku saga where evil Goku just one-shotted everyone by just stabbing them. There was no point in him using any other techniques, to be honest, since the Dragon Crew was capable to counter or prepare for it. Also no blood, when getting stabbed, made it look laughable. Even Super Dragon Ball Heroes showed more blood. Boruto admittedly took too long to get to some good fights, but the best examples from the latest episodes were Kaijin Koji vs Jigen from episode 213. More on that later. Not only is there blood in a show portrayed to be more childish than Super, but the action blows everything from Super apart. Dragon Ball Super fights are all paced the same. You may get occasionally multicolored attacks and completely new ways to hit the enemy that is not recycled from Dragon Ball Z movie 12 or another gut punch, but overall it's nothing new. Always ratatatata, generic beam attack or random info dump from the bench and a gut punch. Even the most boring fight of Boruto has way more things to offer. Naruto vs Delta is basically the Boruto version of episode 5 of Dragon Ball Super, and these are already worlds apart. And unlike with Dragon Ball Super, I can easily name some good fights out of my head that somewhat ranks them. Number 1, Naruto and Sasuke vs Merchant Momoshiki. Number 2, Naruto Barrier Mode vs Ishiki. Number 3, Jigen vs Kaijin Koji. Number 4, Naruto and Sasuke vs Jigen Round 1. And number 5, a Boruto manga exclusive Boruto vs Code. Let's count it down. Boruto is more faithful to Naruto because of the violence. It has more useful support cast and combat. In the manga it has better slice of life moments, can handle power creep better because of the power system, has nostalgia pandering less often and actually executes them better. Both recycle existing story arcs, but Boruto bothers on expanding existing lore more instead of just adding more shit for the sake of it. Boruto has some tension. And the ranking would be Boruto manga is better than the Boruto anime, which is better than Dragon Ball Super mangas, which is better to equal to the Dragon Ball Super anime. But let me tell you, that doesn't say much. The advantage Super has, at least in the anime, is that it's over. Boruto has more than 13 episodes, and went way past super to get actually engaging. But that only applies to the anime. Watching Boruto and enjoy it requires you to skip some content. That's a double-edged sword to get some excitement out of a mediocre show. But at least unlike Dragon Ball Super, there's something to look forward to. Unless you want to see another palette swap power-up, Boruto has no recolor changing transformation.